All right, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dr. Jazmin Scarlett, and I'm a volcanologist, and I'm ACE. And today I am joined by another variety of scientists from various levels in academia and also various identities under the aspec umbrella. And before we begin, just to say, go over a few housekeeping rules. So, as you know, when you signed up, the comments were switched off. But you can send your questions to Mentimeter. And just to say, this panel is not affiliated with any institution or organization. We're just here because we want to talk more about asexuality during Pride Month and us being scientists. And the panelists today, they are only sharing their lived experiences and they do not speak on behalf of the entire asexual community. So without further ado, would our panelists like to introduce themselves? V, would you like to go first?
Yeah, V, I'm an MSc student doing zoology in India.
Claudia?
Hi, my name is Claudia. I am a PhD in astrophysics and science communicator, and I identify as demisexual. My pronouns are she and her.
And Kate?
Hi, yeah, I am a PhD student at Imperial studying quantum mechanics. I identify as asexual, sex repulsed, and my pronouns are she, her.
Grand, perfect. So let's dive straight in. So what does or does not asexuality mean to you? So Claudia, would you like to go first for this one?
So asexuality is what I am, which is quite cool. If we go by the dictionary kind of definition, asexuality means that someone experiences little to no sexual attraction towards other people. So what it is an identity under the LGBTQIA+ spectrum. It is valid. So if you feel like you might identify as asexual or you're toying with the idea, you are valid, you're okay. What it is not is a disease. What is not is something that you should be ashamed of. And what is not is something that you should make someone else feel bad about.
Yes, that's very, very lovely answer. Kate, what does asexuality mean or does not mean to you?
See, this is such an open-ended way to ask the question. I totally agree with everything Claudia said, especially with the definition of what it is, because I guess to add on to that, what it means to me is I don't have a priority. For me personally, I don't have a priority on having a sexual relation with anybody. And as a result, for me, I feel much more interested and passionate about making platonic bonds. And I feel like that is extremely fulfilling. So, and I've been lucky to have a lot of that. So I guess asexuality to me is a priority of platonic bonds over sexual relations.
Yeah. And V, what does it mean to you?
I think personally to me, it's about taking a step back and reassess if you personally feel what you're sort of told to feel in society, or and going off of what Kate said, I think I completely agree that I would also much prefer platonic relationships as a whole rather than strictly romantic ones. Yeah.
Yes, and I think that's what is interesting and I suppose fascinating about the asexual community, in that even though we all come under this identity, that we still define it in our own ways. And I think that's really nice that we show how diverse we are, even under the umbrella that unifies us. And I've just been reminded to remind people that you can submit your questions to Mentimeter. So the code is 74086872. You can hopefully go to that. So if you go to mentimeter.com, you'll be able to submit some questions to the panel or the link below. All right, so next question. So we are a variety of ages in this panel and the chair. So I want to ask you guys, what is it like being a woman or a man in your 20s/30s? Kate, would you like to go first?
Sorry, I keep muting myself and then need to remember to unmute myself. So taking that as what's it like being ace at this age range? So I am in my early 20s, and it's actually quite nice, I'd argue. I've been aware of asexuality since my college years, so secondary, like sixth form, so I guess age of 16, but I didn't really come to like fully, I guess, accept it until I was like 19, so like second year of university. And I guess because like in a situation where I've been surrounded by so many like people, like so many peers who all were going through our own way of going from college students to like adults and trying to figure out who we are and our identities, like not just in like a sexual identity way, but like in a broader sense of identity of who we are. Um, it's quite a positive environment to find other people who want to support you in figuring out who you are. And then for me, once I became quite comfortable with being ace very quickly after starting to identify with it. And then I've just been constantly supported since. And then even my friends who are allies was like, I brought this little guy, sent me that for my birthday.
Oh,
So
Adorable.
oh, yeah. That was lovely. V, what about you?
I think as a guy in his early 20s, I feel like there's a lot of pressure in strictly male friend groups where usually the talk is always something to do with girls or like something sexual. And I remember in the past, I never identified with it, but I had to put up faces in order so that like I don't get questions about it or something. So I did have to sometimes fake it and stuff in terms of talking about it. But yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of pressure to conform to a certain narrative, and any deviations from it asks a lot of questions. So in my experience, it has been a bit toxic.
Yeah. But hopefully it'll get better. Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Claudia, what about you?
So my experience, I became aware of asexuality in my very late teens to early 20s. I have a few more springs, let's say, on my back than maybe some other people on this panel, because I'm about to turn 35. So I'm about to enter the late 30s, so to speak. So when I became aware of asexuality was because I was asking myself, is there something wrong with me? So in the beginning, it was quite tricky, and it has kept being quite tricky for, let's say, the next 15 years, because I just came out publicly this year as asexual. So it took me a long time to bargain with this, not necessarily only because of my own internalized ace phobia, but also due to the fact that growing up, talking about sexuality wasn't really a thing that I would do, or I would feel able to do. So when you become an adult, quote inverted quote, whatever that means, but when you start engaging with adult life, romantic relationships will be a part of that, and sex will be a part of that, and it's just sort of expected to happen. And I just didn't know how to live that. I didn't know how to navigate that. And so I thought, what is wrong with me? And what I didn't know is there's a name for this. So I started to look around and educate myself. And like, for the record, I have known I was somewhere on the asexual spectrum before the asexual flag existed. So I'm like I'm a seasoned closeted asexual in that regard, maybe. But for me, it was really hard to say, okay, then I'm definitely part of this community. But it was also hard to say, okay, what do I do? And growing up in a Catholic culture, it was really tricky to put all these things together, because the best thing that you could do in order like not to be subject to that kind of culture was to, according to the feminism I was exposed to have as much sex as you possibly could. And that didn't seem to be what I felt about that. So I started to feel, okay, am I a bad feminist then? Because I'm not, I just don't relate to that. Am I a prude? Am I playing into what the patriarchy is expecting of me? And that was really hard. And then what I came to realize after a very long time is that all of that stemmed from a few lies that I believed. And the first lie is sexuality is a bad thing, so we should never talk about it. It's just something that happens behind closed doors. It happens behind those doors, and you never speak about it. And that's a lie. It's just not true. The second lie is there's only one way to have a good relationship, and you just never question that. And the third lie is there's only one way of being a good feminist. And that being sex positive means you must want sex always, as much as possible. And that's just not true. When I started reflecting more about it, I came to my own personal conclusion that being asexual is actually an extremely disruptive feminist way of navigating existence, because in a world that centers women as the sort of supplier, right, of sexual energy or interest or attraction, like my ultimate realization according to the patriarchy is that I'm an object to be desired. And how about I say, I'm actually not interested in that? It becomes the ultimate feminist liberation, because I just don't conform to any expectation as a sexual being. I'm outside of that. Therefore, for me, being an asexual woman now means having performed a liberated choice. But it hasn't for a very, very long time, because some people may not be aware of the fact that of the prejudice that it's just that most women are asexual. Like, it's normal that women don't have sexual desire, which is extremely harmful to asexual women that have to do all this reckoning, and to allosexual women who are policed for wanting to have whatever kind of sex life they want.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that I've experienced. So I'm not that far behind in your age, Claudia, but I accepted my ace identity around about 5 years ago. So in my mid-20s, that just gives away my age. And for me, my family's Caribbean, and the Caribbean islands, they're quite queerphobic in general. Like, it's like in their songs, it's in their media, it's really in your face. So I was worried about that. And then, of course, on the flip side of that is very sexualized society. But on top of that, you are fetishized for being a Black woman, and you're sexualized for being a Black woman. And for me, myself, it was like, well, I feel like I'm going against my own culture. And I mean, I was fine with that, because I was just a rebel from day one. But that's fine. But yeah, it's interesting to get the range of experiences from positive to the kind of toxic, and then to the negative to positive. And I think that's definitely like the key thing in terms of it's the environment you grow up in kind of influences how you navigate your own asexual journey. And that kind of leads on to next question. So this is a question I'm very interested in getting your answers on, and it's as you were, navigating your ace identity, how has representation of romance and relationships in society conformed or did not conform to your idea of what these two terms mean? So because this was a very good question proposed by V, I would like V to answer this first.
I think now that I engage with art in a more conscious level, I find representation that I can filter out things I don't want to watch and things I do want to watch. Whereas when I was growing up in India in early 2000s, Bollywood rom-coms, like romantic comedies, were the big thing, and they were fun and they were fine. But the issue was they had this really weird idea about romance and love, where it was seen as the guy getting the girl through whatever means, even like stalking sometimes, is okay, and that the ultimate prize or like the ultimate achievement of life is the guy getting the girl. And I'm fine with romance either ways, but those sort of movies make it a prize where it's seen as you're only complete as a human if you get the girl, or like vice versa. But in those times, it was mainly the guy getting the girl. So I think for me and for the people around me, that set a very toxic expectation which I sort of face even now, where the narrative is, you need to meet someone, you immediately fall in love, and then you get married and then have kids, continue the family line. And any sort of, if I voice in the past, when I have sort of tried to indicate that I don't necessarily want that, then I get labeled as cold, or, you're not just, I don't get romance, so I'm cold, or something like that. But I think people don't get the nuance that, there are platonic relationships and you don't need to be complete only through this one way. And you can determine your own levels of attraction. So now I think there are some really great shows that have helped me decide what sort of bond I want. Like the one I often talk about with Kate is Good Omens. I think that one is was really good for me, which is funny because before I even knew that Good Omens was like a very asexual thing, I identified with the bond first between the two characters before I knew it was an asexual thing. So yeah, I think overall art is now helping me to, or like art and media is now helping me to decide what sort of a relationship I want to move towards.
Yeah. Good Omens popped up in conversations quite a few times, so it's good to hear. Claudia, I'm going to come to you next. What does the representation of romance and relationships in society been for you navigating your identity? And you have kind of alluded to this already in the previous question, but is there really anything else you want to add to that?
I mean, growing up, I was like, okay, Disney movies, right? Some people more than others, but in a number of countries, we pretty much grew up on them, right? And that's the model that you have. You have the very pretty princess, very feminine. I'm talking about the 90s, okay? I didn't get a lot of the more badass feminist princesses later on. Like I grew up when I was little, I had Snow White, Cinderella, The Little Mermaid was coming out in those years. But I mean, The Little Mermaid, the girl that gives up on her body appearance and her voice for a man she actually never spoke to and doesn't recognize her when she actually turns up as a human.
We could have another panel discussion on that.
Try again, Disney, try again. So the ideal was be pretty, be chased at some stage, maybe get in a tower and someone will come and rescue you. And I was like, that sounds really boring. So that's when it clicked for me that traditional gender roles and myself, we were just never really going to mesh. But then that was like, okay, I'm not really sure that's the best thing ever, but a romantic relationship sounds about right. But then I was like, okay, and how does it work afterwards? Like, I mean, I knew what happens between they lived happily ever after and when they had kids, but I was like, okay, and like, is that it? I just felt like I wasn't sure that was just going to be the end. So the problem is, I think, the lack of celebration of different kinds of relationships, what other kinds of other relationships can bring to your life, and the fact that romance or sexual activity is the prize. I find that maybe there is the flaw is right there, that we have so many relationships in our lives that pretty much defines us. Our human experience is very intertwined with relationships that we forge, and to limit ourselves to just one kind of relationship is something that doesn't sit well with me. Why would I want to do that instead of exploring and acknowledging and cherishing everything that I can have in life? So I think if we start approaching things from this other perspective and cherishing the impact that we can have on other people, the people that we meet every day, the people that we work with, our friends, our family, and really appreciating all the different shades and nuances of all these different relationships and how they specifically enrich our life, then we can choose. It's up to the individual to choose romantic relationships, sexual relationships. That's fine. As far as everything is consensual, do whatever you want. But I think it's a massive shame that we just place so much importance on one side of the human experience, that we end up missing out on so many other things. And this is what I feel like media representation can get so much better. And it's starting to improve, but a person that says, oh, I mean, yeah, sure, I can do with a relationship, but I can also do without, it's still kind of the loner, it's still kind of the odd one out. So it would be good to see that changing, and instead of someone is a loner because they don't want that kind of relationship, it's just someone that is looking for other kinds of relationships, and that's absolutely fine.
I completely agree. Kate, what do you think in terms of your representation of romance and relationships in society and navigating your identity?
It didn't help. is the main phrase there. It doesn't help. Or at least it didn't for me growing up. Because the thing is, in my kind of like all my childhood and then like my teenage years, I watched a lot, and I this is the worst offender I can think of in my head, and I can think of specific shows, but I won't call them out, is I watched a lot of American sitcoms. And I also watched a lot of Disney Channel sitcoms, where between the two, even though one is more talked towards like adult and one is more talked towards the age I was, the emphasis on relationships, or in the more adult ones, even just sleeping around, is like, okay, this is important, this is a big deal. Yeah, this is societal. You know what? If you're a guy and you're sleeping around, wow, you must be a winner. And it's like, oh, that's not great. I think it doesn't you kind of block it out for a while, but like I think probably the biggest impact that had on me growing up is going back to the ones that were more age appropriate. Of okay, I see these teenage girls on the screen, and they well, I guess they're just just to summarize it all instead of going on a massive tangent, they're basically conforming in every way you can. Looks wise is the priority. Talk about boys is the priority. Getting a boyfriend is the priority. And if you're not doing many of those things, then how can you really be normal? Which is kind of the only reason that I had I thought in my last year of high school, I was like, okay, yeah, I've not had any interest in a boyfriend, but I kind of want one just to say I have got one. Otherwise, I feel like I will judge myself if I grow older and look back on 15, 61K and be like, didn't have a boyfriend. And it's like, so that's what led me to having a 3-week relationship. Haha, I called that off quickly, not because the guy was anything bad, but I was like, I'm not feeling anything. This seems a bit pointless. So it doesn't. It can be kind of, even now after accepting myself, be frustrating to see, especially seeing, okay, yeah, these Little Memory was a really good example. His two people who have hardly spoken, and this girl is just head over heels, and that's just how it be in a lot of media. And it's that's not realistic either. And if that's what we're portraying as realism, then that's a horrible lesson to teach. But I guess so. But I would like to also just go back and just say the silver lining I have about one, there is very limited ace representation. When I do see it, I get very excited and I feel very seen and happy, and it's wonderful. But the best one I have seen, and again, this was when V said, because we were talking about it last night, is Good Omens, because it is essentially the two main characters basically they only ever call each other best friends. Nothing more. They don't do anything intimate or implies any kind of sexual attraction. They're probably the best example I have of a queer platonic relationship, which basically means, I don't actually, it's hard to explain the definition of queer platonic relationship. I guess
I think it's it kind of, from an outside perspective, and I suppose even from an inside perspective, that platonic kind of relationship, kind of the lines are a bit blurred.
Yeah.
That it could be romantic or something else as well. So I think it's just the queer bit. It's the lines are blurred and how you would define that relationship.
Yeah, and I think that in a way is really freeing, because then you don't have to worry about, is this a friendship? Is this a relationship? No, it's just someone I love very much. And and so I watched the series, and that's the only time I've ever seen a relation between characters that I've been like, that is exactly what I want, and that would complete me. And then the person I have in my life that I'd argue is the closest person I have to feeling that with, which actually, no, I do feel that way towards them. I watched the show with them, and it's just one of my favorite memories. So that's the impact of good representation. They never outwardly say in the show they are ace, but it's enough to be like, that's when I can relate to. And that's when that gives me peace, because it's seeing, and it happens a lot with queer media, seeing a regular stream of I guess expression of, or storylines that involve a prejudice or a misunderstanding. It's useful, don't get me wrong, because it does give awareness, but it's also really draining and tiring, and sometimes you just want a queer platonic love story to make you feel happy.
Yeah. So we need more of that. I hope people listening, if you're a writer and you're ace, get on it, write something for us. So it is mixed bag, and there's some things that hopefully will get better, and hopefully we'll get more of that representation, not just for us, but for those who are questioning or just feel a little bit different in some way. So moving more towards kind of our professions somewhat. So the next question is, how comfortable did you feel about being open to colleagues at your place of work, about being ace or aspec. And I know that for our panelists, this is different kind of like stages of getting to that stage, and different experiences. So it'd be I don't know how long this section will take, but we're going to do it anyway. So Kate, I know you have something that is rather wholesome that you want to share on this question.
Yeah, I do have actually a lot of wholesome content in this area. I blame my peers and my my current PhD group for being so wholesome. So like undergrad was like, I just, being around my peers and being very open in that, and that was very accepting. So there isn't anything too surprising there. I just met some lovely friends and I've never felt judged in my academic journey for being ace. The PhD group specifically, so I'm open in general, and I'm open also when it comes to, okay, I'm having a casual conversation and it's a relevant point to make that, or maybe even a joke, because like sometimes you get some good humor in there, that I'm ace. So at this point, I think even nearly everyone in the group knows, or everyone in the group has an inkling, because I have put the pride flag on my Slack logo for the whole month. So the first person I talked to was a postdoc, because I saw when I met her, I first met her a few years ago, she had like the rainbow lanyard. And we got talking, and I found out she's pan, I'm ace. Great, we're in the same boat. Let's go to Pride together. Haven't gone to Pride yet, but we've talked about it. Hopefully one day. So that was like just a nice first experience. And then I've slipped it into my conversations with my supervisor because of the Aces in STEM Discord that we're all part of. Because I've done a lot of fun stuff with the group, but also some academic stuff, because we once had a speed science symposium. And I really wanted to tell my supervisor about that, and I did, and she just seemed really supportive, like, good job doing a symposium. Also, didn't comment on being ace, but didn't come across as awkward either, which is like just great sweet spot there. The nicest, most wholesome story I have comes in the form of and I need to not say their name, a mature PhD student. So this guy is like twice my age, so like 40s. And he's a part-time student, he works in finance, he's got a family. And essentially one day I just needed life advice, because it's like, okay, you seem like a lovely guy, and I think you've got experience that I don't, that I kind of need to learn from. So we're just talking about like a complete just unrelated thing, wasn't touching on, asexuality or anything like that. It's just money, I guess, life advice. And partway through the conversation, he was like, yeah, like he basically told me, yeah, savings are important because you don't know what you're going to need in the future, like houses or cars or family. And I went to him like, well, actually, that's one area that I plan to save money in, because I don't really intend on having kids. I'm not straight, I'm asexual. And his response was, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine. Well, I guess, and then he goes back on other things, like saying other things of why savings are important. So continued the going, and then a few minutes later said, actually, Kate, do you mind if I ask you a question? And I'm like, yeah, of course, because I quite like being asked questions on this topic, because I think it's quite an interesting conversation to have. And he goes, well, he said less of a question, but more of a comment of, I'm really glad and reassured that you're open. And goes on a really like sweet kind of well, I say sweet, it's a sad story, but the fact that his message to me was very so bittersweet. So he said he's very reassured that I'm out, and I'm finding people who understand, and I've got a community, and I've got friends, and I can do that with him, and I can do that with a group, and I'm in a situation where it's safe to do that. And because he said about 20 years ago, he had a family friend who was a guy who, at the time, I believe that he knew him, was like in his like 60s or older, and very lovely friend gave me loads of context for that. And he said that when that family friend passed away, they inherited what he had because he didn't have any family to give it to. And he found out from going through his old books that he had books on the ethics of homosexuality. So, and other evidence to point to he was a closeted homosexual. And from the sounds of it, he did pass away while still being closeted and didn't find a family for that. And it's really sad to say that because, you know, you don't want that upon anybody.
Mhm.
But I think it's just, he said from knowing that he realized the importance of being out and accepting who you are. Even if you can't find people who accept you, just accept yourself. And he just kind of like gave me the message of like, so yeah, I'm glad you're out. So it's like wholesome.
Oh. Oh, thank you for that. Take a moment to recollect yourself there. V, do you have experiences? I know for you it's a bit different because you're still questioning, but in terms of how comfortable are you with being open about being ace in other kind of spaces?
I think, yeah, as you said, like it's only recently that I've started to properly dive into and questioning my own sexuality. But I mean, I've put, you know, the thing you do where you put feelers out and see if a person is cool or not by seeing how they respond to a particular hypothetical question. So I basically navigate my way through that. Like I'd ask someone, oh, have you heard of asexuality? Without actually telling that, you know, I'm questioning asexuality. I'll just be asking them if they have heard of it or something, and then see their reaction to it. So with that, I'm out to 2 people in the country, and they're quite wholesome, and they're probably listening right now, and I know they'll support me through this whole journey. But in terms of like just peers in science, like I'm yet to feel completely comfortable with being out. And I think that there's also a point somewhere in there about the pressures of coming out. You sort of need to judge that for yourself if you do want to come out and if something is safe for you, because sometimes it's okay not to be out
Yes.
until you find a safe environment.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, and I can't remember where I saw the comment, but I'm not sure who said it, but they said that in some cases it's safer to not be out than to actually be out. I'm sure that was you, Claudia, that actually said that. Actually, I can't remember. But saying that, Claudia, I know this is different and also a difficult topic for you to talk about. So, how comfortable have you been now since you're out compared to when you weren't out being ace in that work?
So, you know, I just wanted really to highlight what we just said. Again, this is something I do say almost on the regular, that your own decision on being out, whichever decision you make for yourself, you are valid. It's a decision that should be respected. My aim, you know, as a person who is now out, as an activist, as a person that works for a more inclusive environment in STEM, is that to reach the stage that I can help people making that decision based on how they feel like for themselves, rather than for being judged by their peers, rather than being judged by society, rather than being scared for their safety. Once we reach that stage, then being out will be a completely personal choice, and it will still be fine not to be, because I don't know my sexuality to anyone. I decided to come out this year because I felt it was the right thing for me to do. Because I decided that was my way of accepting myself fully, was to be able to share it after many, many, many years, more years than I care to admit of being ashamed of who I was. So this was the right thing for me. But if this is not the right thing for you, you don't have to do it. And I think it's important for me to spare a word on how the intersection of identities on the queer, under the queer umbrella, and disability, or being a person from a different ethnic background, and so on and so forth, that can heavily influence your choice on deciding to be out or not to be. And that is something that we need, first of all, to respect. In some cultures, you feel like you don't want to be out because that would bring sorrow to the people around you, and it becomes a conversation that is terribly entangled. So the best thing that we can do as a community is to say, you are one of us. You say it, you don't say it, it's fine. We love you and we see you regardless. I feel like this is a message that I'm really, really always very focused on, because of my own experience of being in the closet for a very long time. This is the message I hoped I would hear. So this is the message I now try to give to other people. I have decided to share this part of me with more people, and I've started doing that since around a year ago, a bit more. But at first it was just with a few individuals who I thought would be supportive, because I had tried to hint, let's say, to hint at this in other moments of my life. And until 2020, the responses I had were not really supportive, when outright queerphobic or dismissive. And that's what discouraged me from doing it for a very long time, because I was afraid I was making it up in my head. I was afraid I would receive hate. I was just afraid that was actually me looking for an excuse not to accept the fact there's something wrong with me. And I decided, no, all of this isn't true. And now for me, being out is an act of joy for me. Since I've decided to share it, I actually found a weight has lifted off me, which meant it was the right thing to do. So to me, this is what it boils down to. I decided to come out this year, and to be honest, I probably wouldn't have, or I would have done it in a different way, had I not been sure that people in my workplace, or a decent amount of people in my workplace, would have been supportive and accepting of me and wanting to do the extra work. When you are a woman in a male-dominated space, it's already complicated to navigate that kind of existence, knowing that there's a great deal of attention on you based on this sphere of attraction. And this is harmful for everyone. This is especially harmful for women. This is more especially harmful for queer women, because as a queer woman, you're never going to perform well under the male gaze, because that's just not what you're supposed to do, because you don't conform to what the cis heterosexual male gaze would like you to. So this made me feel really weird. And I felt like now I can move on to a different part of my life. That is still there. That might always be there. But now I can say it and be happy. And the best thing is now I receive messages sometimes from people saying, I'm so happy to see what you wrote, because I am so not ready, but I see you.
And that's lovely. That's lovely. We get comments like that. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I apologize that it's just emotions running high. Okay, so I would love to continue this conversation more, but we do have one more question, and we do actually have some intermeter questions. So final question before Mentimeter questions. We'll end on a positive note. So, what have been your positive experiences of being ACE, and what can allies do to show their support? So, Kate, are you feeling okay?
Yeah. So my most positive event just made me cry. So haha. So I'll move on to what allies can do to help. I think personally, I appreciate questions. I like answering questions. I like having conversations, especially when someone's ready to leave their expectations at the door and be like, "What does it mean?" Or at least, what does it mean to you? My advice is it's quite hard to remember everything about every person, but try. There's some questions that clearly the person dislikes. Try to ask those less, or try to remember the answer so you don't ask again. Because I don't love being asked by like regularly about my relationship status or my opinion on being a mother, because it's like, if it changes, I'll let you know. But just assume it's going to stay the same until otherwise. Um, but yeah, in terms of what allies can do, just I don't know. Well, an ally said something to me once that made me cry. So try to aim to be that kind of ally. Because it's nice to cry because you're happy, and you can all be like that mature PhD student.
Okay. Claudia, what has been your positive experiences of being ACE, and what can allies do?
I mean, the way I decided to be out and sharing the way I felt growing up and how I felt like something wasn't right, and different things that I've encountered, and then making all that journey inside of me and coming to terms with the fact that other people might still give me a hard time, and to them I'm going to give my greatest act of love towards myself. I'm going to love myself regardless. I'm going to deliberately, freely, radically accept who I am. So far, this has been a great source of joy, finding community, finding support, and finding acceptance. Like now I am crying too. Good.
Oh no. Keep it together, guys. Keep it together.
Idea, by the way. 2 down.
No.
No, in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good, wholesome way, but like, I need to pull a plumber. I'm sorry. But the fact that people see you like the real you, and I can say, whoa, what a journey. I'm not ashamed anymore. Maybe this has been so far the biggest highlight, and now being able to share it openly and to say, oh, this is who I am, and navigating it without sort of, oh, did I hint that like too much? What will people think? It feels very liberating for me.
Mm-hmm.
What can allies do? I would say if someone comes out to you, it is possibly the greatest gift that a person can give you. So be thankful, listen to them, then listen to them some more. And then the first question that you should ask is it okay if I ask you anything? Navigate that on that person's terms. You can ask, it's okay to ask us questions. I'm very happy for people to ask me questions as far as they're not invasive or personal questions or possibly judgmental questions. Don't ask me if I'm normal. Don't ask me if it's a disease. Don't ask me details about my own intimate life, because that's not really any of your business, frankly. What you can / should ask is, are you safe? Because we know how being queer in a number of ways can affect our safety. So offer that. You can ask me, how do you feel about it? You can ask me, is there anything I can do? And let that person tell you what their needs are and how you can help be there for them. Last thing that allies can do and should do always is read, educate yourself, be vocal, bring up asexuality with your co-workers. Even if you're not asexual and you don't think that anyone is asexual, talk about it. Talk about it so that other people will see you as a vocal ally. And maybe one of your colleagues is a closeted asexual and they will know you're safe for them. Bring these things up and call out queerphobia, call out acephobia, call out transphobia. Call it out. Teach yourself how to recognize it and say that that's not okay. If someone is constantly making jokes with a sexual undertone, not always that's, not great for a number of other reasons, but it also makes the working environment become quite uncomfortable for someone who identifies as asexual. So tell them that you don't find it so funny. I mean, to be honest, it's a very lazy way of looking for humor. You can make so many more interesting jokes. Learn from me. I'm hilarious.
I mean, I found out that ace people are absolutely hilarious and great at puns. So you need to talk to ace people for great jokes.
You mind if I add something? Just because I was meant to say this in the other question because I knew this question was coming, but then I was emotional. The way I navigated with my friends, the whole sex joke thing, and this is something that existed before being taking on the label of ace, is we have a very widely used acronym called NSFK, not safe for Kate. I highly recommend seeing if you can get your friends to adopt that, but with whatever your boundaries are. My ones are obviously sex jokes, so I'm on Discord servers where there's specific text channels that say NSFK, and they can just put all their stuff in a place where I can't see it and it's a safe space. There's my pro tip. Thank you.
And lastly, I apologize, V, that you are last to this. But V, what positive experience have been for you as kind of discovering and trying to figure out your identity, and also what can allies do?
I think for me, it was a bit difficult because I'm notoriously scared of communities. Where I fear rejection or something, so I would not approach communities. So it's only recently I started to discover online spaces, not even just for sexuality, but even for other interests like music or science and stuff. So it's funny because I had some rough ideas of what I wanted to say in this question. It was something along the lines of conversations I've had, but I think by far the most positive experience is happening live right now, which is hearing from Claudia and Kate especially, and they speaking so confidently about who they are. And I never thought I would be able to relate to that, but I am able to relate to that. And I think I don't think I've ever sort of had that. So and it gives me hope that maybe even though I come from a very different society, and to come to terms with being a part of the LGBTQIA community is a bit different in India. So I think I've been putting it off for that as well, because I don't know how to navigate with this with my family or just people around. But I don't know, I think these conversations, this specific conversation here, gives me hope that one day, one day I can find my space or be comfortable enough to at least be out to more people and stuff like that. So yeah. Oh, and forgot about the second part.
Okay.
For the ally thing, I think so. The one person, I as I said, I was out to 2% in the country, and I'm always in my head. I have come out multiple times in my imagination. So, and it's always a debate because okay, the other person's going to question this. What am I going to say at that? So it's a very strong intellectual debate that I must win for some reason. But so it's funny because I was coming out to like about questioning these things with one of my friends, and she didn't understand what it was right away because she was not as aware, but like it was more about, you know, the vibe of it was that you're valid nonetheless, but I don't really understand it, so I'm gonna question you, but not in a negative way, just as in trying to understand it. And I don't mind questions, I like questions. And she was very wholesome and she said, I'm so happy for you. And that caught me off guard because I'm not used to people reacting in that way when I say things like that, at least in my head. So I think what allies could do is, even if you don't understand it at first, just make the person that who is coming out comfortable enough, and reassure them that they are valid, regardless, even if you don't understand it. And yeah, that's all I can think of.
Well, thank you. And just know that you do have a community already that can help you talk these things through. Okay, so we've got 4 minutes left, but I've been told I can give a little bit of leeway, so we've got a 5-minute extension. So we do have some Mentimeter questions, and not everyone has to answer these. They could just choose who would like to take it. So we've got one question here that says, what was the thing/point you wanted to say about being an ace person in STEM? So does anyone like to take that question?
That we're awesome.
That we're ace. Anything else other than we're awesome?
What would be a good point? Because I don't. You know what? To quote a friend who is one of the admins of Aces in STEM Discord, we are like, it's such a like specific like crossroads of like Venn diagrams that it seems like we're all just really passionate and really nerdy, and like together we are just really like incredible and like special, and just it seems like just a lovely sub section of a community that is so embracing of different people and different types of aces and the cake agenda. Also, yeah, there is an Ace and STEM Discord. Can we plug that? Is that okay?
Yep.
Plug. I don't know who to plug to, but Jazz, you're an admin / Sarah's an admin.
So the email for this Discord link is aceinstem, all one word, all lowercase, @gmail.com. Oh, aces in STEM. Sorry, not ace in STEM. Apologies. I've been live text as we speak. That no, you're getting it wrong. Okay. But we will find ways. I mean, it obviously you came from Twitter, most people. So you could just message Sarah Cosgrove as well if you need that link. Okay, another one, which is, have you encountered any difficulties in STEM due to being ace? And I know not everyone can answer this question, and there might be a trigger warning for this, Claudia, or do you want to leave that out?
I mean, I never faced like outright discrimination. Like it's not, especially because I've only been out now, so it's not like someone would look at me and say, oh, you're that. It's more like you feel you're a bit out of place. And as I was hinting at earlier, the experience of being a woman in a male-dominated field feel a lot weirder when that identity gets paired with it. I would say that science in general is it's just a very cis heteronormative space. So whatever behavior you have, or however you identify, that doesn't really play into that kind of expectation will make you feel like you're a bit out of place. It might not be always outright discrimination, which is something that makes it actually quite hard for asexual people to demonstrate that it's, you know, it's still not easy to sometimes to navigate certain things as asexual, because it's not like you necessarily get beaten up in the street, which is terrible. But it doesn't mean that what we face and we go through isn't good. I mean, asexual people still get offered conversion therapy. I am one of those people. And it's terrible. You know, who came up with conversion therapy? Not someone with a degree in art, I can tell you that. So how does science feel about asexual people? And the answer is not great. So how do I feel as a person in science being asexual? There is some conflict in there, and there is a lack of acceptance. And the only way I think to get over this is by having more asexual role models in STEM. And, you know, lots of other, all the work that has been done in the past for queer representation has been great. And, you know, we have people like Sally Ride, we have people like Alan Turing. Who do asexual people have? Who is, you know, who is that famous, who is that inspirational, who is that great? And the answer is we really don't. So my answer is I'm going to have to go and become that for all the people that will come after me, that will feel less weird because they have more asexual heroes. Not because I think I'm necessarily a super extraordinary person or anything, but if we are visible and if we are fearless and if we are infinitely accepting of ourselves and of everyone else in whichever way they may present themselves to us, this is what will change things. That we are here to stay. We are here to share who we are, our unique, whimsical, humorous, awkward, and just all around extraordinary perspective. And we want people to be there for that. We want people to stand, you know.
Yes, absolutely. And so we've got a last question to wrap up, or was more of a comment, I'm not sure. This question is, several of you talk about your experiences that might be described as aromantic. Are you aware of any aro communities in STEM? And I suppose I can answer this. So I'm one of the admins of the ACE in STEM Discord, and we do have a space for aromantic individuals. And also, again, those are questioning, like myself, actually. So that Discord is one example. There will probably be other examples that people in the Discord will probably refer you to as well. We also have the OSTEM ACE and Aero affinity group. You can go onto their website to find that out. We can try, well, I'm assuming Sarah Cosgrove can try and find that for you, and she could put that on the Twitter for you guys. But is there, I don't know, just any other communities in general that you guys think of that are in STEM that are representative for ACE and Aero people? You got any other to add?
There's Pride in STEM. It doesn't have a specific, space that I'm aware of for asexual people, but it's a great group of people, and there are a number of accounts on Twitter that are dedicated to queer people in STEM. But I mean, before the ACE Discord came to be, I don't think I wasn't personally aware of any group for or community or space for asexual people in STEM.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can definitely look around and let other people know, collate these resources and share them. But again, the answer is create one. There's the one that you will go out and create, and there's all the good things that you are going to do, because the truth is asexuality is something that has been extremely hidden and under the radar for a super long time, because it's so introspective, and it's something that, you know, how do you perceive absence? It's such a weird thing when you consider, when you frame it in that way. How do I make sense of something that should happen but it doesn't? You know, we occupy a liminal space. We occupy a non-existing space, maybe. You know, we occupy an extra dimension for physics and mathematicians that are listening, you know. But it's true, we have a unique dimension in which we exist, and these things are not really explored. And huge shout out to all the Arrow folks out there who are listening and tuning in. We heart you, because the same kind of work that we are starting to do now for asexual folks should be done for our romantic folks. And people ask me, oh, so do you identify as LGBTQ plus? And I say yes, and I also identify as an ally. I'm an ally to all the identities I do not occupy. I'm an ally to all identities I do not claim. And aromanticism is something that has been extremely erased and shamed and medicalized, similarly to asexuality, but is still lesser known. So the next thing that we can all do for our romantic folks is go on and creating a Wikipedia page for aromanticism, because it is now a subsection of asexuality. So
it still doesn't have its own dedicated wiki page.
I believe it doesn't. I was, you know,
wow, it's 2021.
I was nerding out. Yeah. So, you know, here's where me as an ally to our romantic folks, here's where I offer my help. You know, we need to do this. We need to talk more about these things. We need to center voices that don't always get elevated.
Yes. Well, that's definitely a first step. Great wiki page. But yeah, well, thank you, everybody, for that. And it got a bit emotional, didn't it? I was not expecting that. But thank you to our panelists for their really engaging and really interesting, and it's why we're running over time, because I couldn't stop you guys from talking. You guys are all great. You're fantastic. But just to remind everyone who is watching this, that the Mentimeter will be up for at least another day, so you can still send comments to the panelists, or questions as well, and we'll try and find some way to get those to you, those answers. And yeah, I suppose none of that. Any closing remarks that the panelists may have?
Can I give a massive shout out to all the people that sent us comments and questions on Mentimeters, and some of them are really lovely. Yes. And some of them are like, you know, we love you very much. We heart you in any way that is best for you.
Anybody else?
Thank you for tuning in. Also, this was my first panel, so it was an eventful one, so thank you. Yay! Badge of honor. Hope. Yeah, I'll be brave. If anybody wants to reach out, I might be able to be found on the Imperial College London website for an academic email. Otherwise, I'm very prominent along with everybody else here on the ACE and STEM, so as well as loads of other people who aren't in the panel who are absolutely wonderful. So, yay! Thank you. Also, a big thank you to V, because this was a big panel. It sounds like a big moment.
Yes, well done, V.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to all who are listening, and thank you all for hosting. Keep it short.
That's all right. Okay, so that is all now. So I shall disappear. Toodaloo.